Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session of Q&A with Qlik. Today's topic is new to Qlik Cloud. So if you are a new user who have questions on, what to do after creating your tenant, where can I find some learning materials, or even more than that, this is the session for you. Also, we want you to bring to your attention that we do have an upcoming Q&A with Qlik, which is September 26th, 2023, of course. And it's going to be on the topic of Qlik Cloud Reporting. My name is Emmanuel Herndon, and I am a digital customer success specialist here that focuses on helping customers from trials to renewal and in between. And I do webinars like this to enhance their journey. I'm not doing this alone. My co-host, who is back from vacation, Troy, is here. Troy, introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name's Troy Rainey, and I largely work putting together webinars like this one. And we've got an excellent panel for you today. Let's just pass around, let everyone quickly introduce themselves. Daniele, do you want to start?
Hi, this is Daniele. I've been with Qlik for 9.5 years now. I work, I'm a senior engineer. I also supervise the collaborations for SaaS cases, cloud cases, and here I am.
Well, thank you. All right, Cheryl.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cheryl Mail. I've been with Qlik for a little over 8 years, 8.5 years. I manage a team of curriculum developers who create self-paced and instructor-led training. So we're, on this rapid release cycle, we're always looking at new topics that we can create courses on and try and get the material out to you as soon as possible.
Excellent. Thanks. Swati?
Yeah, this is Swati. I have been with Qlik from 2 years, and I work for Replicate as a SME and also for Cloud as a SME. My role here is like senior support engineer.
Awesome. And Mario?
Hi, everyone. Great to be here again. My name is Mario Petre. I am a principal technical engineer in the Qlik Support team in Lund, and among other things, I am a engine and repository SME on Windows and also work on new cloud cases. And happy to be here again.
Fantastic. So we thought we'd kick things off. If you guys have any questions already, go ahead and put them in the Q&A tool and we'll get to them. But I wanted to call your attention to some recent developments. So on Qlik Community, an excellent resource for everything having to do with Qlik. This is a support updates blog post that was put out last week on Thursday. And it's all about a new onboarding site. So I thought I'd just show that off for you. If you click here, it'll take you to this site. You'll get a nice little video introducing you to this curriculum. And it should be noted that you'll need a Qlik ID. I'm already logged in. We're here at learning.qlik.com where it's hosted.
So yeah, we recommend that you get one of those for the community site as well. So it will, it doesn't actually log you in to the Qlik Learning portal from community, but if you have a community login, it also works on the Qlik Learning portal. So you just log in there as well. So we just kind of wanted to make sure you knew to log in first, and that way it'll open up all of these resources.
Yeah. So yeah, Cheryl, you want to just walk us through?
Sure. So it's broken into different sections, and we try to make some convenient navigation so that you can jump around. Everyone's journey is a little bit different, but we wanted to really kind of showcase all the Qlik resources that are available to you and try and put them together in an easy package. So there's an introduction video and that message to join Qlik Community, because there's just a wealth of information on that site and it's very easy to search. But you also can go into the implementation section, which I think that's where Troy's at right now. And these are some resources to help you get your tenants set up. So, getting users and spaces and groups and security. And all we've done is we've taken content that's out there and we've curated it to present it to you in this type of a learning journey. There's more content out there, but this is like the bare minimum that we think you should be familiar with. that could help you when you're making some of those decisions. And we know that as an admin, you're also going to be helping other people get started on their learning. So we go into a go live checklist that kind of brings you to the point where you want to show off all that Qlik has to offer for your users, other resources for some workshops. So this is the go live checklist.
Yeah.
And this can be downloaded, and you can check off the boxes as you complete the different steps. And some end user onboarding so that you can start pointing the users of your tenant in the right direction so that they can really start to take advantage of the tool. And this is all hosted on the Qlik Learning Portal. So there's other resources and learning plans. We have programs and assessments and other little tutorial videos that, so go down to, this is a good one. Where can users learn more? You can go right to the type of role that your users are going to be taking when they're developing in Qlik Cloud, whether they're just consuming or they're developing apps or developing data models. We've kind of created 3 different learning plans for them to start their training. And I do want to mention that all of the courses on the first tab of these learning plans are free courses. So this is something that you don't need an extra subscription to the Qlik Learning Portal. You can get started for free, and then once you recognize how much good content is out there and you want to get to some of the advanced content, you might consider getting a corporate subscription, very affordable for everyone in your business to take advantage of the content. But we want to make sure everybody can get started and start using Qlik Sense and all the Qlik Cloud tools from day one.
Yeah, this is really great material. And I think one of the best parts, it can be a little intimidating when you're a new user, is there's so much material out there, how to get started and what comes next. And that's what I love about this, how it kind of lays it all out for you and lets you navigate. If you know you want to jump to a certain section, you can, but it's for those who like a little more bit of a journey that's laid out, it's all there for you. First question, tenant. It's a word we use a lot here in Qlik Cloud, and it's new to some people. Could anyone take a shot at defining that?
I can do that. I mean, basically, a tenant is your space. It's defined by your URL, and that's the place where the place which is reserved for you on Qlik Cloud, where you can have all your applications, automations, all your integration stuff, and basically it's your own area.
Once you get your Qlik ID, you'll be able to go in to, we're here at qlik.com, and you can log in at Qlik Cloud. I happen to have 3 tenants just because I'm special like that, but here's what mine looks like. And you got your home, your favorites, catalog, all your lists of everything you have loaded.
So it's a way of delivering the software to you.
Yeah.
And basically, you have access to your tenant. You don't have access to another customer's tenant, of course. That means this is really your own space on Qlik Cloud.
Question just came in. They asked, do you have an app that you can show us in operation in SaaS?
I think I have this one loaded on my tenant because I think it's pretty. But this is a demo app that's available from qlik.com. You can make selections. This one's all about current or insurance. Yeah, but I don't have much data here, do I? You can scroll through the different sheets, see the different visualizations that are shown, that are available. And it's got all the clickability of making selections. If you want to look at everything that's a Jaguar. Yeah. Sorry, I guess I wasn't prepared to do a demo, but.
So if you go to the tenant, Troy, and you go to the getting started section, you will see that there is some demo apps. And those, if you start a trial subscription, you will see those apps, and you'll be able to see how the product works. And so beginner's tutorial is usually a pretty good one to start with. Those apps come with every tenant, so they are demo apps that are installed there by default, and you can just play around with them. And if you want to start a trial, you will get those apps, and you can start looking into the product.
Yeah. All right. Next question. Please review the path to the onboarding material. I joined a little late. Sorry, no problem. So I always like to start from Qlik Community. That's like our main page, and it's recently got a new facelift. A new look and feel for Qlik Community is here. It's all about getting people connected, and one of the main features on Qlik Community are the forums, and these are all divided up by area and even more specific areas inside those areas. And they've tried to bring that to the forefront. So now forums, the latest forum posts are right here on top. You can see we've got 168,000 members, 5,500 of which are online, which is surprising because there's a lot of people on holiday today. It's still summer, but there's a lot of information here. And where I went was one of my favorite places, the support updates blog, which I recommend you subscribe to get the latest. And there was a recent post last Thursday calling all admins to new Qlik Sense SaaS. So we have this new Qlik Cloud admin onboarding site, which will take you straight to learning.qlik.com. And what we mentioned in the beginning is that you have your Qlik ID, which you would use to log in on qlik.com or Qlik Community or learning.qlik.com. It's all the same ID that will get you in and let you see this all this material. So I hope that helped, and I'd be happy to post that link. More questions are coming in. Go ahead, Manny.
The ask is Tenant similar to streams?
No,
Okay.
I was going to say that they're closer to spaces. So streams would be closer to spaces, even though spaces are a new way of organizing content and goes a little bit beyond what streams can do on the Windows platform. But your tenant, because this is a shared online platform, your tenant means your isolated specific area with your content and your users, but still on a shared platform. It's wording that you'll see a lot in cloud native applications and solutions out there.
And you can also encrypt the tenant with your own keys if you decide to have a stricter security based on your own encryption keys. And I mean, already the way that it is, no one else will have access to the tenant apart from you. But if you really want to improve the security even more, you can add your own encryption keys to the tenant, and then you'll be able to. You'll know that you'll have a full guarantee that there will be no other ways of accessing the tenant than using your own encryption keys.
And just to follow up real quick, there was a related question. So is dev, test, and prod treated as separate tenants? The answer is yes. You would have to set up separate tenants for these different environments and then use automation, for example, to promote content between them.
What, on the other hand, some customers just have one tenant and then they use different spaces for production and test. It's also an option. What we recommend is to have a tenant for each environment, but some customers are happy in just using one tenant and using spaces to separate the content for development and production.
Mind you, on our side, we already have multiple levels of the same infrastructure essentially, and this is part of our feature release program and systems. So don't worry, it's not like features will be released direct to your production system without testing, if this is where the comment is coming from. And there is a multi-tiered release program on our side, the same as you would have had on client managed.
Great, guys. Thanks. All right. Next question. Is Qlik automation with the Excel and SharePoint connectors the best replacement in Qlik Cloud for in-printing functionality? It's a very good question.
I can take this one. So to make it clear, automation is just a front end for the reporting service, which is the service that we're now using to generate reports on the cloud. And using automation will make things easier. So yes, that's probably the best solution, but you can also build reports using API calls and do it without having to go for automations. You can have your own solution that makes API calls and builds reports starting from that.
But maybe you saw that our next session, Q&A with Qlik session towards the end of September, I think it was September 26th, is going to be all about Qlik Cloud reporting. So definitely attend that. The product manager for Qlik Cloud reporting is going to attend. And I'll talk a lot about the capabilities that are possible in Qlik Cloud reporting, and if you're used to doing something in printing, how that might be possible in Qlik Cloud.
All right, thank you, Troy. Next question. What Qlik products will be available in Qlik Cloud Replicate? And if Replicate, how are firewall rules handled?
Yeah, I can take this question. We don't have actual Replicate product in cloud. We have product called QBDC, and this is the flavor of QDI products. As part of this deployment, customer has to install agent software in on-premise Linux machine and register this agent in QCS.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right, next question. When creating apps for users outside of our organization, can we use section access so that users inside our organization can see all data, but external users can only see data pertaining to them? It's a good question.
Sure, I can speak a little bit about the security aspect. Of course, without knowing what your data protection requirements are beforehand, there's a couple of ways that you can go about this. In Qlik Cloud, you can use both our role-based access system to define different levels of access, but you will still have to limit data access somehow, and this is the only way to do this, even in Qlik Cloud, would be section access. What you choose to filter on in terms of users and their memberships into groups, etc., that will depend on how these external versus internal users are organized in your own user directory. You can also integrate multiple user directories and then have a unified section access table, essentially, in an application that can handle filtering based on different origins of these users. So that would be indeed the way to go. Some more basic access, like sheet level access, for example, or app level access, can be done via group memberships. But if you want to slice data, essentially, and prevent cross access to those data tables, section access is the way to go.
Definitely, but there's a lot you can do is just having permissions on spaces, right? With managed spaces, at least you can have this managed space for external users and only have apps in there that have the data that's available to them. And so there's different ways of going about it. But that's great.
All right, thank you. There was another question that came into the webinar chat, and I just wanted to go over. And the question is, are there any free trainings available?
Yes, there's lots of training that is free. It does require you to log into the Qlik Learning Portal to unlock it, but under the continuous classroom main menu, when you look at the learning plans, those learning plans, so go to the business analyst learning plan. So the first tab on that, under getting started and loading data and starting to create visualizations, all of those courses are free. So they're some of them where you see the or status really depends on whether you're on a client managed version or Qlik Cloud. But yeah, I mean, each of those will go into, it'll give you some theory. It'll be a hands-on demo with example files provided so that you can follow along with the virtual instructor. It has a quiz. It has a takeaway. So we try to make sure that you can start your learning journey early on before you need to take a instructor-led class or go into more advanced topics. You could also click on the little magnifying glass, and that will take you to our course search. And this searches the entire platform. And you could click on the price and go to free, and all of the courses that are that are free, that do not require a subscription, have a little free tag so that you can access those. You can also create your own learning plan. That's if you one more over, there you go, custom learning plan. So I'm not going to go into this because actually, why don't we just look at the Qlik Replicate one that you've already created?
Sure.
You go through a wizard and you start making selections, and it narrows down the library to just a list for you. And then you're able to follow your own progress as you're taking those courses. So you can see that Troy's completed several of his courses on his list. That's the 100% on those gauges. And if you click View Course, it would go right to that course page so that you could start consuming the content. But when you go to the customer learning plan, it does not indicate whether or not those courses are free or subscription. So that there is a mix there. We want to make sure that you see all of the content that's available on the learning portal, and so that you see the value there.
Great question. Thank you for that, Cheryl. Okay, next question. Following up on the tenant discussion. Okay, so these come with a tenant. That's great. Talking about backing up and restoring. How often does a tenant back up? In the event I needed to restore partially full environments, how does this work and what costs are associated with this?
So what we do at Qlik, we constantly back up our regions. We have a high availability system. At the moment, we don't have the. So I mean, if a region goes down, we'll have a backup available and be able to put it out as soon as possible. We don't allow at the moment customers to back up regularly their own tenants. It's something that we do ourselves for the whole region, as said. So if you delete stuff on your tenant, you're not going to be able to say restore a previous snapshot of the tenant itself. This is something that has been requested, and you can definitely. I don't remember if we have an idea on ideation. If not, please create one. Otherwise, if you find one, just add a comment to that. Some of our customers are making regular backups of their applications via Qlik application automation. So they export their applications to any of their cloud storage, and they use that as a solution.
The other thing that I would suggest in this regard is to keep a relationship or a mapping table, essentially, of different pieces of content and the users who are supposed to see them, so that you can easily recreate those relationships. So backing up the content can be done via the API, by manually exporting the application from your admin console or the hub, but recreating the relationships between your content and the users who are supposed to see it will be the tricky part. Depending on how this deletion happened, essentially, you may want to talk to us first. There may be something that we can do at the tenant level, let's say, on our side to recover things more broadly. But from my experience so far, it has been a little bit tricky. But like Daniela said, it certainly has come up, it has been requested, and it is very likely there is already an idea there. And if not, the moment you create one, it should have quite a few votes. So feel free to engage with that process. They'll help us figure out how important this is to our customers.
And just wanted to show you what we're talking about on Qlik Community. There's a section called Ideation, where we encourage our customers to come and submit an idea, browse the ideas that have already been submitted, and kind of upvote things. Oh, yeah, it's all based on a Qlik Sense app in the background, so you can see everything there.
I know for sure there is an idea about adding a recycle bin, which we still don't have, and sooner or later it's going to come. But the more you...
sorry to cut you off, Daniela, but there is something somewhat similar to a recycle bin. At least it will tell you whatever happened or what you got rid of in the last few minutes, and that is your events page in the admin console. I would go and look there. It should have a full report, essentially, of the last few actions that were performed on a tenant or on individual pieces of content, and that will at least give you an idea of what happened and how to begin restoring.
Yeah, we definitely encourage you to go in here and provide your feedback, because product managers do take a look at this, and it weighs heavily on what gets developed next.
Mm-hmm. And it may sound like a huge oversight not to have this type of functionality, but even though this has come up in the past, it doesn't come up often. And because of how content is really consumed, most of what really matters to a developer, to a business, is contained within the app and its script and the data sources. Recreating, let's say, ownership mappings between a couple of groups and a couple of apps is not going to be complicated or super time consuming, as long as you have a backup of the apps, of course.
Thank you for that. Next question. Can you clone a user so all the apps they have access to carry over to the new users, as well as space access? Any ideas?
So I think function means recreating the same permissions that we have for a user, just copy them to another user. That's how I interpret it. We don't have that functionality at the moment. That's something that would be really good for our ideation page. So go ahead.
We do have roles. If you
we do have roles, and we do have the Qlik CLI. So that is the command line interface that allows you to do quite a few additional or more complicated administration tasks that are not necessarily available in the user interface to begin with, or allows you to interact with those admin tasks in a way that lets you chain different parts of administration together with other automation flows outside of the system, so that it can help you with, for example, provisioning of users. And via those APIs, you can first inspect an existing user, for example, and capture everything that they own, and then associate a new created user with the same pieces of content. That should be doable via Qlik CLI, although it may not. It may be non-trivial. Let's say it may take a little bit of effort, but it should be doable. And most of these functionalities do end up coming in one shape or form to the admin console, as we see value in these repeat types of tasks. So again, promoting the ideation process is a must here.
Great, thanks, guys.
So just to clarify, the command line is basically a front end command line text for front end for our API calls. So it basically simplifies using the API calls to make basically everything that you can do on your tenant.
Okay, we've got a good question that I love when it comes up. with regard to Qlik Cloud, are there any differences between Qlik View and Qlik Sense? Because Qlik View has been the product has been around the longest.
So I can see that
on Qlik Cloud specifically, there is missing functionality for sure, or things that won't work quite the same as that version on Windows. But maybe Daniela can go a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that there is a follow-up question on the same matter. So just we can put them together. Can I put Qlik Sense stuff and Qlik View in the same tenant? Yes, definitely. Whenever you upload a Qlik View app to Qlik Cloud, it gets, if it's still in the old format, which is a Qlik View format, gets converted to the QE F format for Qlik Sense, and you basically can put both Qlik Sense apps and Qlik View apps on the tenant. Qlik View is a old world software, so you're not able to do all the things that you're able to do with Qlik Sense, and so there is support for that for usage. There is no support for editing the Qlik View app on the cloud. You will need to do it locally and then upload it or push it via a publisher. So basically, when it comes to Qlik View, the main difference is when it comes to Qlik View, Qlik Cloud is only a client, while with Qlik Sense, you're also going to be able to create your own apps and do all the things that you can do with Qlik Sense on Windows. You can do it on cloud.
But yeah, to be really specific, you can definitely upload both Qlik View documents and Qlik Sense apps and have them in the same tenant for sure.
Okay, thank you. There was a question that showed up in the webinar chat. It says, hi, is there any plans to add better, say, file management options? Is it, i.e. now, if you want to delete files, you need to do it via the app connection data files?
If you want to delete file, you need to do it via the app connection data files. So I mean, if you want to delete files that were already uploaded, I mean, you can delete files also from the home section of the cloud. You don't need to go through the connection. You will
I think
find
for data though, they have to go to the data connection to delete files. I mean, it's like if the file's an app or an automation or an AutoML, they can do that from the catalog. But if it's data, I think you have to go into the space.
You can just do it from the catalog and
like an XLSX.
Yeah, good point. Here. Yeah, good point. You can definitely do it via the command line, and then yes, that's something that is probably missing there. So I would recommend again logging an idea about that, and let's see what happens.
I'm pretty sure there's something out there because I think it's been it's been brought to training's attention that we, especially since we give you a whole bunch of example files with each course, cleaning up your tenant behind yourself becomes paramount because you want to limit all of these example files and stuff. You don't want your tenant to get so cluttered. So I think I'm hoping that that's something that's going to be looked at in the near future, but I don't know where they are in the process.
Okay, next question. We're going to transition from Qlik View to Qlik Sense SaaS. In Qlik View, we have sheet access by group membership. How do we implement this in Qlik Sense Cloud?
A very, very similar question to a couple we've had before, and also related a little bit to security and section access. So the user role and permission model in Qlik Cloud is very different to what our customers have been accustomed to on Qlik View on-premise, as well as on Qlik Sense on-premise. And because let's say the authorization system is completely different and doesn't use security rules, and we don't have the same kind of metadata about users in cloud as we would, for example, when syncing a bunch of users from your Active Directory that would automatically and by default bring a whole bunch of information like group memberships, etc. In cloud, it more depends on what kind of identity provider you bring to the table, and what information that identity provider is able to synchronize with Qlik Cloud. Based on that, you can then choose different bits of metadata from this user or remote user directory or IDP to define your access rules. But it will very much depend on what kind of metadata we can get back from your identity provider in the first place. Whereas a lot of it came out of the box, let's say, if you were in a very, very normal and simple Active Directory environment on Windows.
You will still be able, it can be tested pretty easily to define section access for any of the users that you have in your tenant. So if you need help with that, you can post it on the community, and we have a very active community. If you want help from professional services that they will assist you for the migration, we're happy to assist with that. So you can reach out to your account manager, and they will help you find the best solution.
I just want to take the opportunity to address, because these subjects were addressed in a couple of Techspert talks that have happened this year. And there was one recently called Qlik Cloud Best Practices, where Eric Thomas talked about managing spaces and resources and how to manage groups and apply group permissions to spaces. And I think that would be a pretty good solution to that. And since you're going on a journey from Qlik View to Qlik Sense, there's another one you should definitely take advantage of, and this is migrating Qlik View to Qlik Cloud. And here, Jonathan Poole, one of our best and brightest, goes through a lot of utilities for migrating Qlik View documents to Qlik Sense apps and then uploading them, and how to manage all that in the cloud. So this is a resource. I'll post both of these in the chat for you.
Thank you, Troy. Next question. If you accidentally delete a personal app, but the published app exists, how can you get back the data loaded editor of the app? Thanks. Any ideas?
Yes, we do have an article for that. I just sent it to Troy. Maybe he wants to publish it into the... You basically unpublish the app, and then you'll be able to do anything you want with it.
But yeah, this is the link I just posted in the chat with all the instructions and even pictures on how to go through that process. Awesome. Let's see if we can get through these last few questions. ODBC AS-400 data connector. This is quite critical to me. Is this in development for cloud? Do we have an ETA on delivery? If so, that sounds very specific, and we're not in product management, so I don't have any insight to that. Does anybody in this panel know?
Roadmap questions. We
can't apologize for not having
provide
insight into that.
Yeah.
But since it is very critical, I recommend you reach out to your account manager, and they have a direct line to product management. They can give you a better answer for that. And there's always ideation.
Thanks for that feedback, Arthur. We'll make sure to pass it on.
There is, just to make sure, there is a ODBC connector for Qlik Data Gateway that is coming. I know that it's been discussed, so it's more and more of ODBC connections are coming for the data gateway. So product management is aware about those requests, and so you shouldn't worry about that. We are aware about it, and sooner or later, possibly more sooner than later, we will expand our offering when it comes to that.
There was some follow-up from somebody about that there is an ideation about deleting data sources. There's a disconnect between how one deletes apps and data sources. It can be confusing. So I appreciate that feedback.
Maybe it helps to think about how these items may be connected in the background, or how one data connection may be connected to multiple apps, for example. That might be something that prevents you from deleting a data connection straight up if it's owned or shared among multiple applications. or available on multiple spaces, you may not be able to do that. Although it is fair to say that we could be clearer in showing our users how to do this chain of events, let's say, in the proper order, so that it lets you delete as many items as you need to. But it's usually has to do with relationships between the items in your tenant and who owns what and what is associated to what.
Okay, thank you, Mario. Next question. Can Excel files stay on-prem instead of uploading it to Qlik Cloud storage? Any ideas?
The very simple answer is yes. Yeah. Then we can take it on from there and have an entire webinar about that particular topic, how to access data securely on premise and reload it in the cloud, or vice versa, how to only reload on premise and then publish fully reloaded data to the cloud. There's a couple of ways that you can go about it, but again, short answer, yes.
Let's see. Regarding user group data brought via single sign-on, is this available from within an app? User group data from a single sign-on.
So you could try to inspect what a particular identity provider gives you back by querying it with some kind of third-party tool. In the case of LDAP compatible ones, we recommend a couple of tools in the on-premise world, but similar ones are available. Usually these online or cloud-ready or cloud-native IDPs also have API endpoints. And this is the exact way that our product or our platform would interact with that identity provider, is via their published API endpoints. So we'll be able to acquire or synchronize into our systems whatever is available from their official API endpoints. That's one way to check out what is available. Now, to answer the question more specifically, yes, you could bring in that metadata into a Qlik Sense app, but you would need to connect to that identity provider via a data source, and that would typically actually be a REST API data connection for most of them.
You might also be able to make a REST API call to the tenant itself, because we have some information there. I don't know exactly the details about that, if it is possible, but there something that might be explored, because when we make calls to the tenant, you can get information about the users and other stuff. So it might be possible. If it is possible, I cannot guarantee it 100%, but worth exploring.
It's worth mentioning, though, since we have been talking quite a bit about Qlik CLI and interacting with our systems via APIs, that all of this is done through authorized API calls. And you will have to essentially create an API token and key on your tenant, and then use that to interact with the system. So it should all be done via your particular identity or user role, and is secure by design.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, it says, hi, we are with Qlik Cloud SaaS. How can we use AI with proprietary data without having our data exposed outside of our Qlik Sense Cloud? An example of where we would use AI is when we have visitor information, say delivery trucks. How can we use the historical information and feed the AI model securely? Another example is we have price data for consumer products by stores. How can we feed the AI model to get analytics of prices, again, without having the data spill outside our Qlik Cloud SaaS?
Without being a full expert on this area, I would say AutoML by default keeps all of its work within the confines of the tenant. So if you want to do some kind of machine learning on these data sources, you can use this functionality. Again, it's called AutoML or automations and machine learning. It's going to be further integrated into the product, as far as I know. But for now, yes, all of that analysis should be isolated to your own tenant. Of course, you need to provide it access to the data, meaning you would have already uploaded that data somehow to the tenant.
We are also going to expand more and more, of course, since there is a big requirements for that, the use of AI within Qlik Cloud. Yeah, I think you should have a talk with your account manager and have probably a view of the roadmap, whatever it's available, and also maybe have a talk with professional services about how to what to do with what we currently have available on our system.
Great, guys. All right, next question. This looks like it's directed to you, Swati. Does the Qlik Replicate Oracle to Oracle database support the lift and shift approach from on-prem to the cloud?
Yeah. Currently, we don't support for Oracle to Oracle. Like there are only few targets that we support in cloud. Those are like Amazon Redshift, Amazon S3, Databricks, Google BigQuery, Azure Synapse, and Microsoft SQL Server and Snowflake.
Okay, great. Okay, next question. How do we optimize an app that is taking about 3 to 5 minutes to load when someone opens it? The opening performance. There could be a lot of factors there, but yeah, go for it, Mario.
So we have a lot of ways. We have a lot of tools and a lot of ways that you can approach this, but more specifically in cloud, I think it has surpassed the analysis capabilities of what you can do currently on Windows. And we have this amazing feature called the App Evaluator, and a couple of more hardcore, let's say, developer-focused API endpoints that will give you a lot of information about what goes on in the background during an app open process. And the App Evaluator or the App Performance Evaluator will give you information not only about the data structures within this application, but a little bit deeper into exactly which portion of the data load took the most amount of time on the system. And this can also be used with reloads, by the way. So if you are wondering what part of a particular reload is taking longer, or if you're wondering if it's the data acquisition or data storing area that is taking longer, you can also use this API endpoint to get more information. The API endpoint, I will follow up with a link in a second. It is called the Get Progress API endpoint, and it is available on both Qlik Sense on-premise and in cloud.
I definitely encourage you to take a look on Qlik Community and do a search, because we have a lot of resources when it comes to addressing performance in apps.
Best practice. And another option that you might consider is using on-demand app generation. So instead of loading a big app with all the data, you open a basically entry point app, and then you generate an app with a smaller set of data. That is also something that some of our customers are doing, especially when it comes to big data. That's also an option. So look for the feature which is called ODEG, on-demand app generation.
Okay, thank you. Next question, I think it might be our last question. Is there a clear list of what we can get with SaaS? For example, I know that Qlik reporting is an add-on. What do we get out of the box, so to speak, by moving to SaaS?
Qlik reporting is an add-on with a free tier if you're using Qlik, if you have a Qlik Sense Enterprise subscription. So it's not completely it's not fully a paid thing. You have some free stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff.
Let me just check.
I know, I was just looking on our Qlik.com page, seeing about the capabilities. If it has a simple sheet, the best answer to that question is to contact your account manager, because they have it all broken down for you, what the capabilities are and what's for free and what's not.
I'm sharing, Troy, in our internal chat, the link with the pricing stuff, and then you can see the difference of what you're getting with the different functionalities. Just to
yeah, so this is
there is
Qlik
some
Cloud
stuff
over here. All the stuff.
Yeah.
And
if you scroll down, for instance, you can see that with Qlik Sense Enterprise, you get like 5,000 automations runs. You get
SAP connector, geo,
some more stuff,
bigger apps.
We're gonna be changing the licensing model somehow in the future. So some things will change, but there is some information already here what you're getting with the two different plans that we have at the moment, which are Qlik Sense Business and Enterprise SaaS.
Again, for you to join us for our next Q&A with Qlik. Again, here's the QR code, and our next session is, again, Tuesday, September 26, 2023, and it's going to be Qlik Cloud Reporting. And also, this is a QR code, and it's less than 2 minutes. Just tell us how we did, give us some feedback. Again, we would like to thank you all for joining us here today. We'd like to thank our panel for joining us and taking that time out to give their expertise to us. And we say from Qlik, have a great day. Thank you.